what it comes down to is real value is like basically what we're becoming. You know, money's fake. Like you sacrifice your core of who you are, your values, your faith, your principles for something that's fake. That we get confused because the world is based off of money and houses and cars, and that's what's praised, right? It's not praised the guy on his knees praying for other people. There's just so much more to life, and I think to your core, it's like, really, what are you when nobody's looking, right? I would just say choose good and be good, and make sure that you influence the world for good versus evil. And I would say that that'd be the message I'd say, and just love people, love and serve people and help them out.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the show. Today we have a super cool guest. This is Tyler Mickelsen. Tyler has been running sales teams all over the country for 20 years. He's been doing door-to-door, training salesmen and helping them build their lives. We're so excited to have him on. Right now, he's a sales director in the Bay Area. He's working for Sunrun and he's helping them make great money. But more than that, he's helping change a lot of lives. So Tyler, I want to give you a second. Introduce yourself. What's your name, your brand, your mission? Who's Tyler?
Yeah, it's a big question. So thanks, Mikey. Thanks for having me on.
Of course.
Love what you're doing. Love your mission. So keep up the good work. I'd say, who's Tyler Mickelsen? It's a great question. I would say for me, my biggest focus is ethics. I think if you gain trust through ethics, and I feel like that I can look back at my career and I can say that there may have been some gray areas where I'll take back, but I can definitely say there was never black areas. And then I would say that I've always relied on ethics, and I would challenge anybody that's not living that. I would challenge anybody to go down that path because it's a much happier one. I'd say my brand is helping people. Our vision is a region and core. Core is to your core. Who are you really? We know who your surface is. Like everybody has a front. But at the end of the day, like, what are you to the core? What are your values? What do you stand for? That's kind of our mission. And then our vision as a region, as a sales leadership group, is to be better in every way. So not just to make good money or to say that, hey, I made millions of dollars or whatever else, but it's like, how are you as a husband? How are you as a father? How are you, if you're spiritual faith, really, who are you to the core? Because that's really what matters more than anything else in this life.
I love that. Guys, you can already tell this is a great guy. We're so glad he's on the show. He's got a lot of good we're going to go in today. And I actually kind of really quick, before we get into any other questions, I want to dive into some things that we just heard. The whole thing about going to your core. How do you really internalize something like that and make it a part of you? Or maybe if you don't know who you are, your core, how do you figure that out and then get a direction going?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think sometimes, I think we value and we think to ourselves like, I heard this on a podcast just recently, and basically it was interesting that we say that we think we value and we put value on basically what we have, but basically what it comes down to is real value is like basically what we're becoming. And I think that we get confused because the world is based off of money and houses and cars and all that stuff, but that's what we see and we want, and that's what's praised, right? Totally. It's not praised the guy on his knees praying for other people. It's praised that people are out flashing their money and flying their jets and making a life look good. But it's like, at the end of the day, do you sleep well at night? There's just so much more to life. And I think to your core, it's like, really, what are you when nobody's looking, right? And I think that when I say to your core, it's like, who are you genuinely? If nobody's watching, nobody's looking over your shoulder, not trying to put an image on for social media or, trying to put a front on for your people, your salespeople, whatever else. But it's like, who is Mikey to the core? Who is,
right.
Emic, Tymic, whatever they call me, to the core is like, I would just say that that's the foundation. The cool part is nobody can take that away from you, right? Once you get that core and that's your values, like nobody can take that away from you. That's who you are. That's your identity. And I would say to your core is really your identity, and basically your, of what people look, I guess when people think of you, and they think like, people call me Big Bud. That's what my friends call me, is Big Bud. But I think that's probably my identity, is like, yeah, I'm a friend to everybody. That's probably one of my identities, one of my values, is like treat people the way you want to be treated. But I think that's where you got to look at it from outside perspective and say, okay, like, really, who am I? Right. And it's tough, because we change that over the years, right? We change it with fashion, we change it with a lot of those things. And so I think it's important for you to sit down, not with social media, not with, Google, and just sit down and say, what's my life? What have I accomplished? And where do I want it to go? And basically, okay, now if I know people are going that way, then surround yourself with them and follow that path. But you got to do the work. Nobody's going to do it for you.
I think that's a huge lesson I've been learning. I think it's like, I had to go put up one of my salons in Florida, and it was like, it's so funny, but it's like the simplest lesson, but it's like, I got just some furniture that had to be assembled. And it was like, the fact that it was like, I got so many lessons out of it. I was just sitting there. I was like, no one else is going to put this together.
Yep.
Only I am. And it gets done as fast as I get it done. And the longer I wait, the longer it's going to take to get this done. Like, it's you and no one else is doing it. And that's how it works. But you can get it done. Like, there's a way.
Yeah, always a way. You can become whatever you want. It doesn't matter your background, doesn't matter your parents, doesn't matter anything else. But I will say that, your identity is going to change depending on your environment. If you don't control your environment, that you're going to, you look at people that smoke. Typically they hang out with smokers. You look at people that are successful, they typically hang out with successful people. And you do become that environment that you surround yourself with. So it's important to choose the right friends, choose the right people, because that helps you fuel that vision.
Totally. Well, and as you're trying to really connect with your core and really actually make that who you are, if you're hanging around people doing good stuff, then you're doing good stuff. Like, guys, the actions you take every day become your identity. Yeah. And what you do is who you are, whether people see it or not. Like, and that's where it's like, I think it's so cool that Tyler pointed out that, especially with business, like, ethics are his number one thing. Tyler, like, why is that important? How does that help you in business?
I've been burned a lot. If you're in business and you're going to run a business, just know that that's going to be part of the game you're in. I've been burned a lot over the years, where, you help a person out that's going to lose their house, or they're going to lose something, and they give you the long sob story. If you're a good person, you genuinely want to help people. Right. And you have extra money, so sometimes you're going to give it away, right? I gave away a lot of money over the years just trying to be a good person, but you end up realizing that actually fuels the problems that they have versus actually helping them. And I've learned that over the year that I only fueled their addiction. I only fueled their problem. I didn't actually help them. I might've helped them for a problem or an instant or a month or 2 months, but I didn't really fix it. And I think that's probably when you think like my vision or where I want to go is like really coming to people and like figuring out like, look, I'm not perfect. I've learned a lot over the years. I've had to make a lot of changes. There's been just, there's a lot of ups and downs, but it's like, I think my vision is like going in, like, how can we all come together and be like a team and like help each other just level up and get better in every area of our life, and that's kind of like my vision of like, where I see the future going is I think if you're a true friend and a true business person, you're looking at other people's lenses versus your own lens. And I think we get stuck in life where it's like only our lens. And that's been a mistake that I've made, where I only saw things through my lens versus, what's the lens of other people? Like how do they feel with my actions versus looking at it from only my lens, if that makes sense.
Totally. And I think the thing is, the more you make relationships in life that you really want to keep, that you really want to make work, the more you realize that it's like, it really matters how other people view your actions. It's not just your lens that matters. Well, and I think that's so cool, because I think you're totally right. And getting burned teaches you those lessons, especially if you're trying to be a good person and just help out. Can you maybe, I don't want to get too deep into it, but like,
for example, one of my first years as a manager, I had a guy, he was struggling in his marriage. He was going to he was going to lose his house. He was going to, all this stuff. And he needed like 20 grand. If he didn't pay his back rent or his back mortgage, I can't remember the whole details. It's been years ago. He's all, if I don't pay this by this date, I'm going to lose it. And, and so I went in there and I was like, look, I was a single guy. I had extra money. Right. So I was like, okay, like, look, I don't have a kid. I don't have a wife. I don't have that stuff. Like, look, let me help you out. You just got to pay me back by October.
Right.
And I think, what is this? Almost been 15 years later, he's never paid me back. So it's just like, you give somebody 20 grand, but then you look at it like he's in the exact same spot.
Right.
He's not really evolved. He's not really changed. And I think that's been a lesson to me where, and it's not that you can't help people out, because there's some people that also pay you back and, they're in a tight spot, a tight jam and that kind of stuff. And I'm not saying you can't do that. I'm just saying I would be cautious and maybe look at their track record before you go forking out, whatever.
I'm a little curious. If you could go back, would you do it different?
No, I'd still do it.
Nice.
The reason why is because I believe in karma. I believe everything. I feel like I've been blessed and blessed and blessed. And I think even if they don't pay you back, I feel like you get blessed in other ways of your life. I feel like the universe conspires for you or against you. And I think your actions are always getting recognized, whether we think they are or not. And I think that I would do it in a heartbeat, because at the end of the day, it's like, even though this person didn't pay me back, that doesn't matter. I still love the guy. I mean,
totally.
He's going to work with me several years later. I didn't even bring it up. Right. And it's like, and so it's just one of those things where, but same thing, same guy came in, big story, new wife, knew everything else, and came in, said he was going to be, changed person, just like, try to be my best friend, all this stuff. 6 months later is where is he at?
Same spot.
He's nowhere to be found. And so it's just, you got to just, and I don't too details, but it's just, you just learn over time. It's like, you can't carry that with you. And I think if I carry those debts with me, it is what it is, right? It doesn't matter. I mean, a lot of amazing people have probably given away millions of dollars, way more than I've ever given away. And so I think it's just a lesson I've probably learned in my life that, maybe be a little smarter with who you surround yourself with, and then that kind of stuff. But
yeah, no, we've been having conversations like this around my circle, just saying, like, if people need help, like, you give it, but like, don't really expect it to come back. Like, except, I mean, like you said, the karma, like, awesome. You'll have it in other ways, but like from that person, like 9 times out of 10, you'll probably never see that money again, but it does come back around, and it shows who you are as a person, honestly, when you're still willing to give, and that there's a big chance you may not see that money again. It just shows where your priorities at. And I think that's something that we really agree on, is money, it's great and it's important, and it affects many important parts of your life. But to your point was, you're teaching guys to make money, but you're also helping them become the best version of themselves in every area. How do you do that?
So it's interesting on that note, I have a personal coach. His name's Dr. Craig Manning. If you don't know who he is, you can look him up. He's awesome. He's the best. And I've worked with him for the last couple of years, and I've learned a ton from him, and I've been able to evolve even beyond what I thought I could, just in my mental game and personal side. He's helped me out. I mean, I used to be a lot more overweight. Just to be honest, I weighed probably I don't know, maybe 2 years ago, I weighed 260. Now I weigh 210. And so it's just just things like that, where it's like a mental focus where you can help really dial things in. And something he hit on me the other day that was really an eye opener to me that I never really thought about. But he was meeting with a psychologist or something, or therapist or something, and was helping him out. And he brought up the fact that he's like, Tyler, he's all, money's fake. Right. I'm like, yeah. He's like, no, it's fake.
Yeah.
The government prints it. They just print it. It's not it's not real. They just govern us with money. If they need more, they print more. And it's fake. It's not real. And it's like we sacrifice all these things, or we sacrifice all these relationships or all this stuff for something that's fake. And we put somebody down because they may not have something more of this fake thing of money. And we
All
don't
the
treat
time
people
too.
as equals, right? And I think sometimes we do that, and it was really humbling to me to like step back and say, yeah, and I'm like, so I mean, you know, in your mind, your subconscious, you're like, yeah, money's not real. I mean, you all know that, right? In a sense, but there's a value there in some set. But it's something that really stood out to me. He's like, if you put your happiness and your energy into something that's fake, you're going to become an angry person, an uptight person. You look at all these people that are super wealthy, super rich, and all this stuff, like, and they're just angry, right? I'm not doors for Liz. You knock on them and you just like don't even want to talk to them. They're just grumpy as all get out. And I'm not saying that's the only thing, but I'm just saying that that's something I think I've learned is like, well, I don't want to be this person that goes and sacrifices all this stuff and makes money and I'm like successful or whatever else. I got a long ways to go, but it's like, for what? Like you sacrifice your core of who you are, your values, your faith, your principles for something that's fake. And I see it all the time in like door to door. That I mean, you see these sales reps that will say something that's not true or whatever else. Even in my weakness in my career is like you push the gray line just a little bit just to get the install so you can say you got the number versus being straight up with the customer, right? And then not that I was ever like shady or anything else, but it's like you pushed them and basically said, hey, it has to get installed tonight or we can't do it. And that's not true, but it's basically creating urgency in my mind. So I felt guilty on that stuff, right? That's why I switched to solar, so I don't have to do that. So, but I think that's kind of coming back full circle. Is it's just been a really eye opener to me from Dr. Manning that you know that if you're putting all your energy and your focus into something that's fake, you're going to end up with a very unhappy situation or life. And then the first thing you do in that situation is you don't ever like you don't take on like your own accountability, right?
No.
It's always somebody else's fault. It's always
Victim mentality.
It's the market's fault. It was the market crashed. It's you know, we take on all these things that just aren't like real because we don't want self-awareness, because we want to protect our pride, right? We got all this pride built up, right? And our ego. And so it's anyways, just coming back to is like progression, like to your course. That's something I really focused on is just like letting pride go, letting my ego go, and like letting it focus on, okay, pride and ego, you don't need it. You need love. And that's what I've been more focused on, is just giving love and receiving love versus, you know, that kind of mentality. So I won't ramble. Sorry, Mikey.
No, I love that. And I think that you just ended on the coolest note. Like, I think everybody, they do so much in their life for, I mean, like you said, money's fake. And I think that is such a cool insight. And I think that it's so true to recognize that people do so much for something that's fake. And the other thing is, I think there's a fake or a false belief that people think they don't have love in their life when they don't realize that they have love from like friends, from their family, from their teachers, from their work, you know, everywhere. They have all this love coming in and they keep thinking, oh, if I do this, then I'll be loved, or like, then I'll be enough to deserve love. And it's just like, guys, like, it's a huge lesson so many people don't learn, but it's like, you're enough and you already have, like, I have a manifestation thing that I do every morning that it's, I have no lack of love. And as you start to recognize that, like, your whole life comes to center because you're like, oh, suddenly you have motivation to go out and work hard because you're like, I have people in my life that I love that love me. And, oh, it doesn't matter if I lose everything today because I have people in my life that I love and that they love me. Like, and you're like, everything's suddenly like in perspective. You're like, this is what matters. And money's fake.
Yeah. No, I like that. So I would say that the other thing too is if you have that and then you level up to that like perspective, if you do hit that goal, then what happens? You get let down. Right? When you get there, you don't get the feeling that you thought you were going to get.
Totally.
You know what I mean?
Which anybody making good money has experienced that. You kind of get to that point and then you get there and you're like, it's not what it felt like I dreamed it would feel like. And so you think, the goal must just be bigger.
Yeah. Well, then you go to the next level, right? And not that there's, I mean, I would tell you to ascend, right? That's our focus in the Stockton office is ascend, is that you need to ascend in your life because that's 100% like what you need to be doing. Because progress equals happiness.
Right.
You're not progressing, you're just not going to find that happiness.
I totally agree. No, I think progress totally equals happiness.
Yeah, and I think if you've experienced it, some of us, you ever get a spot. So I was single, went around a large team for alarms, did really, really well. You know, we did really well. And then I made life-changing money, like literally tripled what I had made the year before. And and then I became a regional manager and just kind of coasted around that same category of money for a long time. And my thermostat, so to speak, like my mental thermostat was like kind of like my happiness got set based off of basically what I was making versus kind of like what I was doing. And I think that's where we get stuck sometimes in life, is that that's where I've been stuck for on and off for years, is where you get your value is based off of your financial versus, you know, how many people did you help in a day, not how many dollars did you make.
Right.
So that's where I'm refocusing my attention. This isn't like about me or whatever else. I'm just saying is like those that are struggling or whatever else, I've already been down that path. Like just don't, it's a dead end. Like it's not a good one. So I'm just saying, save yourself 5 or 10 years and struggle, you know, struggles and all that stuff. And just realize, look, like how many people are you able to help? How many people are able to influence for good? And like, and yeah, obviously still make a good income because it's the law of attraction. If you build the skills, the money's going to follow. And you don't need to like put the focus on the money, put the focus on like human performance, as Dr. Manning says, is like get focused on your human performance. How are you getting better at your craft versus like, you know, what are you making in a sense? So
that is so smart. I think that is so smart. I always tell people, I'm like, if you don't have money to invest in like assets or whatever, I'm like, you got to be investing in yourself, courses or whatever. I think Alex Hormozy, I think, was saying, he was like, until I'm making X amount of dollars, he was like, besides my living expenses, all my money's going into just my education, learning, practicing. And with door to door and stuff, like you can't learn without doing it. Like you have to get on the doors, but it's pretty rough. I mean, when you're out there selling and things like that, and there's other people in other industries too, but it's just like when you're working really hard, like it's hard to be consistent and always show up, you know, as your best self and as yourself ready to go mentally, emotionally, physically. What do you have tricks and tips, Tyler, that you teach your guys for how to show up sharp every day, or what they can do to have a good summer?
No, that's a great question, Mikey. That's a great question. I would say, you know, you've got to look at it from, we all come with baggage.
Yeah.
Okay? From our childhood, come from baggage. We got bullied. We didn't make the sports team. We got cut. We weren't included in the cool kid club, or, you know, we have addictions. People that are addicted to something. Everybody's got some type of baggage in a sense of like, of that really creates insecurities.
Totally.
Like a lot of my insecurities have come from getting cut my sophomore year of basketball, which was just stupid, right? It's like, okay, who cares, right?
Right.
But like the rest of my, even how good a basketball player I was, or I am today, or whatever it was, it's like your identity becomes that hardship. And so I would say that, like, what I encourage reps to do, and this is something that, again, go Dr. Manning, as I've learned, I love Dr. Manning, is that if you're focused on the past, okay, then you feel feelings like guilt, frustration, anger. That's when you know your mind is focused on the past.
Right.
Okay. Now, if you have like fear and anxiety, then you're focused more on the future, where the uncertainty, the unknown, and that stuff, right?
Wow.
If you're feeling peace and you're feeling confident, then basically you're focused on the present. You're in the now. And that's what mental coaches are really trying to do. Like the coaches, excuse me, they try to do is they're really just trying to help us focus on what we can control, not all the things around us that we can't control.
Totally.
So that's all I'm trying to help my reps get to, my sales reps and my team and my leaders and all that stuff. That's what we're trying to do as a team. I'm not perfect at this. This has taken me years, and I got millions of miles to go, but that's the fun part, is now I know where to go and how to get there. And so it's fun to progress and get better at it. So that's where I would say, just if you're really struggling in life, I think sometimes you're carrying these heavy suitcases around that are just, you can't run with a 200-pound suitcase from the past.
No.
Right. And
right.
So any thoughts on that? I guess
we always called it, I can't remember where this comes from, but it's your one big thing. It's like, you always have, they have those old sketches about prisoners, and they got the ankle weight that's like got a chain on it and a big ball on the end. And it's like, life's going to give you a ton of those, but usually there's one really big one. And if you can just cut that loose, like, you will take off. And I think that's kind of the same, especially you see these people every once in a while, they just get kind of that aha moment. Suddenly a light bulb goes off and then they take off. Have you seen, I don't know, I'm curious though, because the thing is, it shouldn't just be that one day it makes sense. Sometimes you got to really just stick with it a long time. And I think especially in sales and things like that, like, you have to put in the hours. And so it's like, with creating momentum in like sales or anything in life, have you seen anything specific that's really helped you, or maybe you've seen some other guys really build some real momentum towards their goals and whatever they did?
Yeah. That's a great question. I say that, you try to compartmentalize this and make sure that you understand it. So just to rephrase your question, I want to make sure I got it right, because I have a bunch I want to say. Sure. So your question is basically compartmentalize it for me.
So just if you want to, like, for instance, there's some guys that I have this thing. I tell everybody, I'm writing a book on how to create momentum in your life, because people will see people that, man, life just seems hard. And it's like, the harder you work, the harder it gets. And it's like a guy riding a bike up a hill. It's just getting harder, even though he's getting farther down the road. But some guys, it seems like their bike got to start at the top of the hill and they just cruise down. It seems effortless and they just win. And it's like, there's some guys who just finally figure it out, and they start to not just get better, but start to compound their success. And it's like, are there any principles that you think that, that you practice or other guys have practiced to help you to kind of create some momentum in your goals or compound your success?
Yeah, no, I was giving you a hard time. I wanted you to enunciate that question because I know you've thought about this one for a while.
Yeah.
So I wanted to make sure they got the picture. I'm glad you gave the analogy in there. I love that analogy of the mountain biker. That's perfect. So I would say the thing that I've learned personally, and that I've evaluated through the years, and I can just relate to me personally because I've lived it. The people that really are at the top, you see the names and a lot of those stuff, they chose to learn from others instead of letting life teach them the lesson. Nice. And that's where, for me, I've made really big progress in my life, is when I come in humble and hungry, and I'm like just a sponge from the right people, first of all, right? The right crowd.
Huge.
Then you are going to make just leaps and bounds of success further than the average person, or life's going to humble you. Perfect example for me. Okay. So I just got off of, I just had some health stuff happen to me. I had a couple seizures, and these seizures, I had a seizure in March, and I had another one in May, which is, it's not something to be proud of talking about. Right. But a cause of these seizures, there's like different signs and cues of your health, right? I've been running and burning the needle, working and thinking like, man, I'm gonna buy this asset or buy this and build this future for my wife and all these things. And when you're working like crazy, you don't take time to take care of your body. You don't take time to like plan out and organize, like, what does my body need? You only throw in, what do you want?
Right.
And so it becomes a want mentality because your need is only work, right? So I did that I think I became a regional manager. I don't know what year it was, year 2000, I think 9, 8, no, I don't know. Yeah, 2008. So I ran kind of like a wild, crazy life. And then I got married later on. My wife just got thrown into it. And then there's another story there. But it's like, well, kind of what I'm trying to kind of help you understand is when I had these seizures, I had all these signs that basically were telling me like, I was drinking 3 energy drinks a day to try and keep up. I was only sleeping, 4 to 5 hours. I was eating, not even I was eating bad, but I was just eating extra food for comfort because I wasn't feeding my body on the inside, right? My mind. I wasn't feeding my mind the right things. And even if you're feeding your mind the right things, but you don't feel good with your body, it's really hard. It's all got to be one. And that's one thing that I've been humbled on is, and so for me, for example, I've had amazing friends. I've literally been blessed with some of the very best friends on the planet. Like I honestly feel like that's where God has shined on me. I got an amazing wife, amazing family, amazing friends. Like I just feel like just super blessed in that category. But I have all these, and then I marry the woman of my dreams, and she is super health conscious. She's like, hey babe, you need to do this. Hey babe, you need to take your health. Hey, you're older than me. You need to be like more like cautious. Did tell my mom's like, hey, you need to get off the energy drinks. Tell my dad, you gotta have energy drinks, right? Not until I had my first seizure in March have I been caffeine free for the basic, like last however long that is, how many days. I haven't had caffeine at all. But before that, if you would have told me in February of this year that I had to survive and do my job, be a dad to 4 boys, be a husband, run a church calling, do all this stuff without caffeine, I would have told you you're insane. I'm like, not an option. Like, that's just not an option. Sorry.
Like you just don't get it. Like at this point, like.
Yeah, it's not an option. Like, I mean, I was also the point where I was taking the caffeinated beverage to church, you know, but at least I drank in the parking lot, right? So, but just to kind of get at it, is like, I had all these examples in my life, but my pride and my ego told me I knew a better way, that I knew a shortcut, that I was the exception to the rule. And I think sometimes we think to ourselves, Mikey, that we're the exception to the rule and that we don't need to do step 1 through 100 to find that number. We think we can skip 50 steps and we can go 50 to 100. Now, you can in some ways if you take the time to learn from somebody, but the reality of it is that's where I got humbled, is like, you can choose to be humble and learn from others, or you're going to get humbled. And so for me, like, I'm all about health. You know, I never stepped in a Whole Foods. I never just cared about organic. I never cared about what's coconut water. How much water am I drinking a day? Like, what vitamins does my body need? Now that's all I think about is like, what does my body need? What do I need to accomplish? What does it need each day? And it's crazy how much better I feel. I don't have any caffeine, 0 caffeine. I'm not eating what I want. I'm eating what I need for most of the time. I still eat some stuff, but you don't need it, right? You crave more and more. So long story to answer is one, learn from others.
Nice.
That's a shortcut to success. If you can humble yourself, swallow your ego, and you can learn from others, then even in business and life, that's where you're going to get just crazy amounts of success way faster than getting humbled through life. And you basically it correct because the laws and the principles of success, they're true. That's why they're there. That's why you hear the same books and they're the same principles along the line, just a different story or different version. Is because the principles are true. We just have to either learn and get on that path, or we're going to get kind of forced to go that way.
Totally. Well, and I think it's so smart and it's so simple. They already learned the lesson. Like, I mean, there are millions of books out there, and most of them, I mean, if it's a self-help book or something like that, it's someone spent their entire life learning a lesson and then writing about it so that you didn't have to learn it.
Yep.
Like that's, anyway, is there any book that you specifically love to recommend to people?
Yeah, I mean, Dr. Manning, The Fearless Mind. That's a book I would recommend just because, you know, he talks about 3 principles of success. Basically, the first one that's a hindrance of success that he teaches is the first one is the fear of failure. That's the first one. The second one that's a roadblock for you is basically the fear of criticism. Yeah. The criticism of others. You don't want to do a podcast because you're worried what people are going to think or whatever else versus just doing it, right? And so like that fear of criticism or social media or what your image is, right? And then the third one is actually the fear of success. A lot of us don't rise up or get to that success benchmark because we don't want to be held to that standard, right? We don't want to be held to that standard, that expectation, right? And so that's something there. So the Fearless Mind, he teaches several principles. Dr. Manning, you can follow him. He's awesome. One big game changer. I mean, I've shared this one before. Darren Hardy, the compound effect. That's just a true principle. What you're doing day in and day out, small, simple choices plus consistency plus time equals a radical difference. That's a great self-help book. And then the new book right now out by Ed Milet, The Power of One More, is actually really, really good. It's a good book.
Was there
So if you're
a
looking for the mental
specific
side,
thing in there that you liked? I've heard different opinions.
oh really?
Yeah,
I really liked Ed Milet. I think a lot of people can be critical, whatever else, but I feel like he
totally.
genuinely has a mission and he
I
genuinely
love
cares
Ed.
about.
I would love to be like Ed someday. That's like my dream.
Yeah, he's awesome. And so I think for him, it's just the first chapter. If you don't listen to any of them, if you just listen to the first chapter, maybe the first two chapters, it's
Nice.
just straight truth and gold. And if anybody that's wanting to find success in their marriage or any area of their life, you just listen to Ed Milet's first two chapters of his book, and I'm telling you, it's a complete game changer. He's just straight with you, and he doesn't make it. People probably don't like it because they don't want to be pretty much told that they're going to fail. Sure. And he pretty much just puts it point blank, and he's like, "Look, this is the law. This is how it works, and you either do it or you don't, and that's basically your results, right?"
So you can't skip those steps.
Yeah,
you are not the exception to the rule.
Yeah, that's true. Those are good ones. I mean, I could go list of a bunch of books. I would recommend reading at least one good book a month is what I would challenge you to do is read one good book a month. Nice. How to Win Friends and Influence People is a must read. That one right there is a must read. I read that one every year. So that's one I read every year.
Some of the most successful companies and teams I've ever worked with all encourage their people to read books all the time and then to share it with people.
Yeah.
Huge. Yeah. Well, and I think it's so cool that again, you would have said, hey, if you thought I could do all this, take care of my 4 boys, my callings, my work without these drinks, like you're nuts. And frankly, I think a lot of people would probably take your side on that. But the thing is, I'm so curious because in my opinion, you're headed towards being the 1%. And whether that's financial or just 1% of like life being, married with kids and like have your life together. I mean, I think that's a pretty huge accomplishment of what you've done. But yeah. I'm just curious, do you think people can get as far as you've gotten without taking extreme measures like the energy drinks and everything? Or would you be farther ahead today had you maybe stuck to the principles?
I'd be much further ahead.
What makes you say that?
I'd be 10 years ahead financially if I would have stuck to the principles. If I would have humbled myself and not thought I had a better way, and I would have just learned from the guys around me instead of trying to prove that I was better than them and being an idiot, I'd be 10 to 15 years ahead. A good example of that, Casey Baugh. Casey Baugh is a guy that came in. His business went out. He's a stud. Casey's great. Casey's crushed it. But Casey's a perfect example of somebody that came in hungry, humble, and just learned from anybody and everybody he could, took anything good and ran with it. And that's why he's where he's at today, is because of that. That's one. Castle Keeler, he's in the solar world. He's absolutely crushing in Fresno. And he's a guy that came in, I think 3 or 4 years ago. He's one of our top paid guys, just to show you that basically in 4 years, you can accomplish whatever you want if you're humble and teachable. And so that's one of my biggest mistakes in my career, is that you think you have just a better way, or that like your pride or your ego is like, I got to prove how good I am, versus like, you know what, like, let me take a step back and look at a different lens and see how can I make this, or how can I adjust this from a different lens. And I think that's where I've been humbled over the years, is that, I mean, I've got great ideas, great talents, but my execution might not be as good or whatever else. It's like other people outperform you. It's because of pride and ego. You're not taking a step back and learning from others. This is my personal opinion and my experience.
I think you're spot on. No, yeah. Guys, you'll notice there's all these games. I was hanging out with my partner, Phil, today, and he was talking about how there's finite games and infinite games. Finite games are like baseball. We have rules. There's never going to be a time where they say, no, let's just add in 3 more innings and I'm sure we'll catch up. Like there's an end. But with business, it's an infinite game. Like if Casey is, crushing it because he came in hungry and humble, but then one day he chooses to give that up, like me and Tyler can catch up. Yep. Like that's just how it works. And so you can tell that Tyler has taken on and embodied this true principle of being humble and hungry. Because when you get rid of that ego and you just want to learn and you want to work, and it's what works. It's not who's ahead of me. It's recognizing, who was I yesterday and am I beating that guy today? You know, taking that next step, whether it's little or big, like just make some progress and be humble about it. And it's like, it's all those true principles you guys have heard. If you got some faith that you can actually make something happen, if you got some patience, you don't need it today, and you can be humble and then be diligent. I mean, get out there, obey the rules of the game, you know, gain some knowledge. It's like, I mean, have some hope that your life can be different than the miserable life you thought you were about to have. I mean, give back to people, you know, have some charity. Like, there are so many of these principles that it's like, you don't recognize that when you put them all together, or even just nail in on one, go down on humility. I mean, like we were talking earlier, everybody wants to look at the cars. Everybody wants to look at the flashy stuff that makes you look successful. Most of those people are in debt. And if they're not, it's because they learned what we talked about here. Get humble, get hungry.
Yeah. Oh, it's so good. Spot on. Yeah. And honestly, it's, you don't have to be like, I don't think success in like business and all that it's not a must, you know. Some of the happiest people on the planet make, you know, 60 to 70, 80 grand a year, and they live, and that's the life they choose. I think the key is that live the life that you want to live, not the life that others think you should live. And that's where I've made the mistake in my life, is that I thought I was living the life I wanted to live, but reality is there's some, but it's like, you need to just get really, really clear and have pure clarity on, what does Mikey want? What does Tyler Mickelsen want? What does anybody want in their life? And that's where I would say it took me 41 years to figure that out. Right. So I would just say, learn from my mistakes, and you'd be miles ahead of me, and you'll be much more successful than I was. You'll be a better leader than I was, a better sales professional. You'll be a better friend, church, whatever your calling or go, you know, whatever your desires are. I really think it comes down to that.
Wow. Tyler, I think it's so cool. You're a really successful guy, but I love that your perspective, you were like, I think that's the way that God's blessed me the most, is friends, really good friends, really good family. I mean, just good people around you. Like, how does that make a difference in your life?
Man, I got my friends are yeah. And then even the people I work with too, that's part of the reason why I still do the job I do, is why I recruit so many people, is because, I mean, what job can you go hand select who you work with, right? That's why.
Totally.
If you want to be an entrepreneur and you hate that you have to sit next to the person you sit next to and work, well, then go create your own business. Go create your own, you know, your own sales force. Like, go build it. Go build who you want to be around. And I think sometimes we're just stuck and we want to complain, and we get that law of the lid that John Maxwell talks about, just that we just have this imaginary lid on us. When reality is, we just need to look through a different lens. And if we look through a different lens, then we're going to see a whole new world and a whole new dimension of things we can accomplish. But your friends and your family are everything. Life's short, right? It really is. I mean, I'm 41 years old. I lost my mom in November. You know, it's hard to lose a parent. So it just puts a perspective in your life when you lose somebody close to you. And there's a lot of people on this call that are probably, your podcast, whatever, this lost somebody even closer, and my heart goes out to them, because, you know, it really is difficult. It puts you in a spot where you're vulnerable and all those things. And I would just say that instead of have anger and hate, have love and appreciation, and you'll be able to move past it. And if you have love and appreciation for the time you got with your mom or your husband or whoever it was, that's what I've learned, is the more love and appreciation I have for my mom, the happier I am that I had the life I had with her versus the things I'm missing out on. And so there's a lot of great things to talk about, but I would say that, you know, just be better in every way. That's the vision. It's the focus.
I love that. So many good things. I'm curious also, when you became a dad, I mean, you said you got 4 boys, you know?
Yeah. Yep.
I keep saying, I mean, there's so many people today that they aren't getting married and they aren't having kids, and they kind of think life's about them. How did having some kids, a couple of boys, you know, how'd that change your perspective on life?
Yeah, honestly, I got married. I love my wife. My wife's amazing. She really is. She's, you know, we've had our ups and downs, and if any marriage says they don't have their ups and downs, then I think they're lying. And if they don't, maybe they're the 0.0001% of them, I guess. But you know, but I would say that, you know, I loved my wife, stoked to marry her, you know, best friend. And then I had our first boy, Staten. We named our first boy Staten. And I remember I held him for the first time, and I'm holding him. I'm just like, and I felt a love that I'd never felt in my life. And I remember like looking at my wife thinking that I'd never loved anyone more than her, you know, other than like my parents and that kind of stuff. There's a different love. Holding my boy, I'm just like, wow, I've never felt this type of love in my life. And so I think that's the cool part about having kids. Then they grow up and they, you know, then they hurt you and all that stuff. I just say, you know, I mean, I got 4 boys, 9, 7, 3, and 2, but I honestly, it's a lot of work. I pray for my wife daily because she deals with it. She homeschools them, takes care of them, but wow. It's the things that you get from it. It's the small moments outweigh the big moments. And I think that a lot of people, because they're so focused on all the failure with marriage, they're focused on the easy road. Social media, we're focused on the one perfect picture versus the 1,000 that it took to get that picture. Right. The angle, the direction, the sunlight, whatever, you know, we get it right. But it's, I think that looking back, it's like even me and my marriage when we struggled is that I had expectations of the marriage, what I thought marriage was because I was there. And that's what put a hindrance on our relationship or stress on the relationship versus me coming in and just loving her unconditionally and not having expectations, but just her being my wife. And that was good enough. And I think with all the marriage failure out there that, excuse me, we get focused on the failure part. Right. And what you focus on is I think Tony Robbins says, what you focus on is what grows. And so it's like, instead of focusing on what's going wrong in the relationship or why I wouldn't want to be a dad, focus on why you would want to be a dad and why you would want to be married and why you would want to evolve. And there's happiness there that you'll never find anywhere else.
That is so cool, man. I just think it's because life becomes different when there's finally really somebody that you love them more than yourself. Mm-hmm. And it's like, people get married and then a couple things go wrong and they leave because they were more important. But as soon as you feel that love, as soon as you get that different view where it's like, I've never felt this. Like I can guarantee, you would do anything for your boys, even though they drive you nuts. But it's just like, that's a different person. And I think so many people are missing out on that fact that they don't know that it's like, there's something bigger and you don't get it till you're there.
You got it, man. Hey, Mike, the question is, when are you going to propose? I'm just
I'm getting on it.
I'm just messing, dude. So, but no, you got it dialed. Yeah. But no, how old are you?
27.
27? Yeah. That's about when I got married, was 27, turning 28, I think.
Okay. So that means I got like a year.
You're good. So yeah, no, it's good. Good.
No, Tyler, this has been sweet, man. I want to ask you 2 more questions just because I want to kind of give you a little bit of a shot to just say whatever you want. 2 things. One is, what's one really big lesson that you're learning in your life right now? Because I think everybody's always learning a lesson. Either a big lesson that you're learning right now or that you've learned in your life, something that really just helped you grow, something that maybe you're going through, could be something with your stroke and things changing for you, but hey, it wasn't a big lesson that you're learning right now.
Hey, it was a seizure, not a stroke. Come on.
Sorry. You're not that old. I'm just kidding. Could be.
You could have been off. I only got carried away. But I would say the thing I've learned recently in my life is that I've been really focused on is choose your words carefully. Yes. It's really, really crucial that you choose your words carefully. Especially your thoughts can run wild. And your thoughts can do crazy things. You can try and control your thoughts, but the words that come out of your mouth, that's your decision. And that's something that I've learned and I've been a lot more cautious on. I used to get really, really, really nice and then I'd get really, really hot and say whatever I want to. And then, just figure it out. It's like, I would just say that choosing your words carefully, you've only got one shot. Some people you only have one impression with. And the words that you're using and the way they hear you talk and that's your identity. That's how people see you. And then also that's the influence you have with people, right? Is it for good or bad? Are you making an imprint on them for good or bad? And I feel like that's where I think in times I've, even the way if you talk bad about somebody or, they're not around and you're talking behind their back, that's a mistake where I would just like, you start talking bad about something. It's something that I've really learned over the years. It's like, that's just really immature and it's not the right way to do it. And so yeah, I would just say that's probably the big lesson I've learned right now is just choosing my words and making sure that I'm in control of what I say. Totally.
I love that. And then my last question, I want to know if everybody in the world was going to see this video, because you never know. What's your message to the world? What would you want them to hear? What would you want them to know that Tyler wanted to tell
them? You're good enough.
You're good
enough. Capable enough. Doesn't matter your background, doesn't matter your race, doesn't matter anything. If you want to, you can. And I'd say that I would just say choose good and be good and make sure that you influence the world for good versus evil. And I would say that that'd be the message I'd say, and just love people, love and serve people and help them out.
I love it. Guys, so good. Guys, I'm going to put any links below. Tyler, where can they find you? Or do you have much of a social presence?
I've got an Instagram, but I'm not. Yeah, I don't do a lot of posting media. You can find me on Instagram, Facebook, but it's about my extent of my.
That's okay. Guys, I'm going to put any links below where you can find him. If you guys need him for a speaking engagement, find him on LinkedIn, because this guy has a lot of good to give to the world, and he's here to stay. So, Tyler, thank you so much, man, for your time. Thanks for being on the show. We got so much good out of this, and I know it's going to change some lives.
Thanks, Mike. You keep doing good, man. You're doing some awesome stuff. Keep it up.
Awesome. Thanks, brother.